What's up, everyone? Coach Ben here, back with another video review. Now, if you want to be a part of this series, there is a link in our bio on our Instagram at Big Benchas. You can click on that, will provide instructions. I will also include a link down below in the description box of this YouTube video. Please send in your videos and be part of this series. Now, let's get into it. This is Tim. All right, Tim submitted his video via email here, and let's take a look. This is in a meet. So, this is in a meet. Let's see Tim's setup here. All right, getting down on the bench. You see he made an effort there to kind of get his shoulder blades pinched a little bit. Setting his hands to the bar. This looks like a strong bench here. Good amount of weight on the bar here. Let's see the handoff process. So, the press looks good. I mean, the press, you're staying in a decent position throughout. All that looks solid. One thing I will go back to is just the handoff here. So, we can see if we take a look at the handoff, it's a little bit two-parted, meaning the handoff pretty much just comes up, right, and then comes out, and it's a bit two-parted. So if you have a handoff person, right, make sure that bar is not only coming up just to clear, again, we just want to simply clear that small little lip of the bench rack, but also that weight needs to be guided out. So the handoff isn't just going to lift up, but they're going to really just be providing force out for you. All right, so whether that's someone you know or had someone lift you off that day there, Tim, make sure with a handoff you're getting guided out of the rack and not just lifted up and then left on you to bring the bar out. You want to make sure you're getting guided out to that position you're going to take the bar. But ultimately, what I wanted to focus on with you here, Tim, is beautiful bench, no doubt about it. Stay in a good position throughout. Right, good press back, got that weight moving back, gives yourself a chance to really use those triceps to power through to lock out. Awesome bench here. Obviously got the weight, successful meet attempt. What I would say to you, Tim, is just focus a little bit more on what you can do during your setup. Because again, the bench press is a game of millimeters, as I've said time and time again in countless videos. It's just like football, it's a game of inches, right? Bench pressing, it may seem simple from the surface, but it's a game of millimeters. So if we can cut any bit of range of motion off of your bench stroke, that would be huge. If we can get into a tighter position, that would be huge. Pretty much what you have going on now is just pinching your shoulder blades, laying down on the pad. You're probably losing some of that as you're grabbing the bar here. And then you provide some type of a leg drive as you start the press itself. Now, what I would focus on when you get down to the pad, right, instead of setting your shoulders here, go ahead and set your shoulders there, pinch them down, but when you're down here, use something to leverage. All right, whether it's putting your hands against the sides of the rack here and really trying to jam up your shoulder blades, use your legs during the setup, not just when you're going to go take the weight out. Use your legs during the setup so that you can pack your shoulders underneath. All right, that'll push all your body weight up on your traps, and you're trying to physically try to pull your shoulder blades down towards your hips. I mean, all these are just different ways in which we can use leverage in order to attain a bit of a better arch, a bit of a better positioning here. All right, so for you, it's really where you're going to see huge benefits to your bench press is going to be in the setup process. All right, because you got a great handle on the bench itself. We can clean up that unrack a little bit. The setup is going to provide you a ton in terms of increasing your bench press. So thank you for your video here, Tim. All right, moving on. We have Will Never Settle. This is Willie's bench here. Let's take a look. So we don't see really, okay, so we get a little bit of a setup process there. Tightens up with it. Decent throw back there. So he's doing some reps here. All right, so what I want to mention here with Will is making sure he gets those shoulders settled earlier. So if we take a look, right, he does get a good push back here during the setup process. I would try to do that before setting the hands to the bar, just so you can get into a little bit of a tighter position with your upper back. So I would first do that, slide back, get all your weight positioned to your traps, and then go about trying to get to the bar and whatnot. Then you can see here this big effort. Watch when this weight comes out. This is when you do a really great job here, Willie, of packing in. You can see how he activates his lats before he goes into the weight. See that? See how everything just tightens up with his upper body? So we're looking primarily right here. Right as that weight comes out, take a look. You'll see him, boom, get tight right there. All right, and that's awesome. But I'd like to see you do that a little bit earlier, Willie, because what that'll help you do is as you go through the reps here, you can see if we continue to look at what's going on around shoulder blade level, you're starting to slide out of position a bit. You can see you kind of retighten there a bit, over pressing the bar a little bit, meaning that you're not really holding that back tension as you're pressing the weight. You're just kind of using your pressing muscles to get that weight up. You want to be active through the back. The same way that you clenched up initially, you want to be maintaining that tension the entire time you're benching. And what that'll traditionally feel like is if you're coming down with that weight, you are going to feel a lot more resistance through your back as that weight is getting down to chest level. If you stay in a good packed in position with your back where you got tight earlier, you activated your lats and all that, it's going to make it a little bit harder to get down the weight. But I want to encourage you to do that because you're going to be able to maintain a better position throughout. I actually just posted not too long ago on our YouTube and Instagram a video about maintaining that positioning as you go through reps, and that's going to help you add more reps, and it's going to help you add more weight to the bar, and it will definitely transfer over to what you do with a max single as well. So I wanted to offer you that there, Willie. All right, just make sure that exactly what you're doing before you start that bench press right there, boom. We want to set that during the setup process before the weight even comes out. We want to take the weight out into that tight system, and we want to maintain that as much as possible. All right, thank you for your video, Willie. Moving on here to @pop.punk and deadlifts. This is Steve's bench here. All right, let's take a look at Steve's bench. All right, here's his setup process. Great setup process. I love here how he's leveraging with his legs, getting to that bridge position, putting all his weight onto his traps. Let's see, I don't see much pinching of the shoulder blades. Right there, you can see he makes that effort to pinch, trying to maintain that as much as possible during this process. Good setup process. This is a great setup process. Unrack there. Hips come down. Let's take a look at the bench. Beautiful positioning with the bench. I really like what he's got going on there. All right, so really loving what you got going on here, Steve. But I do want to touch on a couple things. So one, this is a great opportunity to bring this up again. This is a common thing I'll mention. Make sure, while it's fine to lift your hips, and you want to lift your hips if you're doing a self unrack, right? So you can see here his hips still haven't touched down to the pad. All right, that's what we want to do for a self unrack, because that's going to give us the leverage so that we can keep our lats engaged here as we get the bar out. We're not reaching above our head and disconnected from our back, so we're able to create a leverage to get that weight out. That's good. We have the hips up now, but I do want to just encourage you to, during the setup process, make sure those hips touch down, because time and time again I'll just see athletes, once that weight comes out and they settle their hips, either they find that the tension's a bit loose here, right, when they're settling their hips down, or they feel like they need to move their feet to really get the right hip tension. So it just pays to get into that final position first, feel what it's going to feel like to have your hips down. Make sure your feet are where you want them to be, and then go and leverage your hips up. Okay, so when you're getting your feet set here, instead of leaving your hips up, again, touch down, get a feel for that final position, then go and lift your hips up. And then usually you will find that you are more on point with where your tension is, your foot positioning, and all that. So little thing there. Also with the unrack, all right, we can see a little bit more of a pressing type motion that I'd like to see. If we take a look here, what's going on really at shoulder level up the arm. When you go and take this weight up, you see it's almost more of like a press. All right, it's not a drag out, it's a press up and then the bar comes out. So we want to, again, correct that so that you are pretty much just dragging the weight out. So you get into a beautiful setup position, right? I want you right now, lock those lats in by bending the bar and pulling the bar to the front of the rack. Okay, we want our force pulled to the front of the rack. So where that little lip is on the rack hook, right, we want to make sure that bar is dragged right up against the lip. We are putting force forward, and our lats are tense here. All right, so then all you really need to do at this point is provide a small little lift, but really just as you drop your hips, right, as the hips come down, right, you are pretty much creating a lever with your body. If you lock your body in to where that bar is going to get dragged out as you're dropping your hips if you keep your lats engaged. Okay, so that's what I would offer you, because that unrack can definitely be a bit smoother in terms of getting the weight out, having more lat activation. So you get tight with your lats after the fact. So see, you press up and then you can see you crunch down here. We want to crunch down with the lats earlier, get that activation, and then create more of a lever arm to get that weight out of the rack. All right, so that's what I would offer you here, Steve. Appreciate you sending in your video, my friend. All right, here we have at OG Guamzilla. This is Jess. Let's take a look at Jess's bench here. Strong press. Gets that bit of lockout at the end almost. All right, good gym lift. Good gym lift. There'll be some issues here in a competition, but definitely a strong gym lift here. But what I would offer you here, Jess, is I'm taking a look at your feet. All right, I want to take a look at your foot position here. See how his heels are up. All right, and what that's going to end up doing, Jess, is that's actually, if we take a look at where your knee is positioned relative to your hip, it's above where your hip is. So you're probably going to have some issues here with keeping your butt down on the pad, which you would have to do in a competition. So when that knee is actually below the hip, that's favorable, because even if we did bridge up, it's very unlikely that your hip's going to pop up, because we only have so much hip extension we can go through. So the fact that you're doing the heels up and style of leg drive, and usually if you do this style of leg drive, those feet are going to be positioned well under your hips. All right, and you're still leaving them out in front. So all they're contributing to is raising your knees more, and you're just pushing through your toes. So I would just consider, either if you're going to do that style, you have to really get those toes way farther back, or I would just switch to putting your feet flat, because just putting your heels on the ground is already going to aid in dropping that knee height and already give you a bit of a positioning advantage. Okay, so no need to really be in that position where you have your heels up, unless you were to bring your feet much further back underneath your body. And I don't know if you're comfortable getting to that point, but otherwise I would just leave your feet flat and just push as you're pushing. All right, that's going to help you tremendously. So thank you for sending in your video here, Jess. Last but not least, at Harmer Strength. This is Troy. Now, Troy actually, he participated in our recent bench boot camp. Okay, so let's take a look and see what Troy learned from the boot camp. All right, good setup process. You can see you're getting that stretch in his neck. Weight comes out. Butt's down. All right, solid press. Really happy with his bar path here. Wrists, let's see, wrists rolling maybe a little bit. See that bar kind of rotate back in his wrist. So just have to work on keeping that bar, wrist position strong, bar deep in the palm. Maintain that throughout. But hey, looks like Troy definitely learned quite a bit from the boot camp. This is a solid bench here, Troy. I really like what I'm seeing. One thing I will offer you, however, is when you're setting up, I'm looking here, beautiful positioning here. Okay, I love what I'm seeing here. See how he's patient in not letting his elbow get under the bar. He's trying to create a stretch in his neck, right? We want to get those shoulder blades positioned underneath us as much as possible. And in order to do that, we have to actually kind of relax our traps and allow those shoulder blades to really catch to the bench and push all our weight up into our neck. So he's doing a good job of that here, but then right when that happens, let's look at the difference right here. And I understand you're not really going to be able to unrack a weight like this. So what Troy's going to have to do is he's going to have to position himself just slightly back on the bench, because ultimately when he gets this weight out, he's still got a little bit of space there between the rack and the bar. So he's really wanting to, if he's going to self-hand off, you really want to limit that as much as possible. So you do have to scoot back a little bit more and run that risk of being very close to the hooks, just for efficiency's sake. So I would slide back, set up a little bit further back on the pad, and then just be careful right here. You know, that bar is deep in the palm, looks good here, and then as soon as you lift the arms and expose the armpit, right, those shoulders, watch how they end up just kind of crawling back up towards your head. You're not tight in the lats when that happens, and then the bar gets dragged out after that. All right, and then you make that effort to tighten up again, but it's just not going to be as good as when you initially set that setup right there. All right, so what I would say, Troy, is just be very careful when you're in a beautiful position here. I think you'll be excellent with getting that weight out if you are further back on the bench and you have your hips up and you're able to leverage that weight out, and you don't lift your arms as much as we see here. Once you do that, you're a bit loose through that system. Your lats aren't tight, all right, and you're pretty much going to end up unracking with your shoulders and then hope you can kind of get into tension with your lats again after the fact. So just a simple little unrack adjustment and positioning of where you are on the bench, Troy, but overall, I really love seeing your bench here. It looks strong. It looks like you aren't overpressing the bar. You're keeping your lats engaged throughout. You have leg drive. Loving a lot of what I'm seeing here, bud. And hope you took a good amount out of the boot camp. Fantastic looking bench. So appreciate sending your video, bud. And that concludes this review. I appreciate everyone tuning in. If you enjoy these, give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments. If you want to submit your video, go ahead and click the link in the description, or if you're on Instagram watching, link in the bio, instructions on how to send in your video. I'd be happy to review them. Appreciate everyone, and I will talk to y'all soon. If you enjoyed the video, click the link down below to learn more about our ultimate benching resource, the Better Benching Academy, where you can access all our programming in-app as well as exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, click the link in the description box below to fill out your application and schedule your coaching call with me today.